The main goal in progressive cards games is to focus on taking your opponents out when it's worth for their cards. Taking opponent by opponent out, you will become stronger and eventually win the game. Also, it's very important to be spread out well enough, so it will be hard to take you out, especially when it comes to 60 seconds per turn games. In this video I'm going to show the common mistakes of master rank players that keeps them away from reaching a Grandmaster rank. Important note, these mistakes and tips and tricks I'll be showing are straightly for progressive cards games. Playing with fixed cards, there's a totally different strategy. So keep that in mind. And saying that, let's get started, guys. First mistake, fighting for a continent. No Australia, no win, right? No, that's wrong. In this example, the yellow, master ranked player swiped out 8 troops of orange. That was a terrible decision, as she not only ruined the game for the orange but for herself as well. That's not a surprise that both of the players were taken out first. Remember, progressive cards games is mostly about the cards, and fighting for Australia, which gives only 2 troops per turn, isn't worth it at all. Plus, you don't want to make another player weak, as basically you're giving that player's cards for free, for whichever lucky player which gets to take that player out, and gets a lot of advantage. So what you should do? There are 2 options. First one, if you think that your opponent will be desperate to take a continent at any cost, then the best decision is to move your troops out. Here is the example of a smart player moving his troops out. Well, I wasn't going to fight with him, but my tactics of adding more and more troops has worked. He got scared and pulled the troops out. And now the second option, if you think you're playing against a decent player, then keep adding some troops to that continent from time to time, but don't worry about it too much. Just add enough troops that it wouldn't be worth for a player to swipe them out. Here is example of 2 smart Grandmasters. They keep adding troops to Australia but are not dumb enough to fight for it, because they know that it would be just a waste of troops. Both of them would become potential targets to be taken out first, and even though if one of them would successfully blitz the other, then still wouldn't be guaranteed to hold, as Australia could be taken over one of the players who have some troops near. And additionally, who would like to make another player very weak, so one lucky player would get a bunch of cards for basically free. So if you play against low-ranked players, against novices and beginners, or even intermediates and experts, then I would recommend you using the first option of pulling your troops out, but if you're playing against Master or Grandmaster, then you can continue adding troops to that continent. But keep in mind that even though some of the players have a really high rank, they still don't have a clue of how to properly play with progressive cards, so be careful. Here is the example of 2 not the very smartest masters, green and orange, who cleared out others for continents, making all of us to be taken out easily by the yellow player. Look guys, the yellow player had no problem swiping all of us one by one out at all. He knew that progressive cards games are all about cards and that continents are just secondary thing. He got a very easy win. Anyway, here's another mistake of masters. Look at the blue player. She was adding her troops into a blocked place. Well, sometimes it's not bad to not pull out your troops in the beginning of the game if you're afraid that other players could be irritated by you and potentially attack. But later on, you should always pull them out of the blocked place. The progressive cards games are all about cards, and the way to get even more of them is by taking your opponents out. But how do you supposed to take anyone out if all of your troops are blocked? Lol. Here is the example of the same mistake of a different game. The purple player blocked his troops in South America. And that is a really bad idea. Well, sometimes it can be good in fixed cards games to block your troops if you want to show players that you do not have any intentions to attack them and want to be friendly. But in progressive cards games your main aim should be cards. Continents don't add that much of the advantage when the value of sets are starting to increase drastically. Your armies must be in a position and be prepared to take players out. But when most of your armies are blocked, your chances of taking someone out decreases drastically. As you can see, the orange player is making the same mistake. It's only good to put all of your troops into middle of Europe in fixed cards games, as players will be afraid of your big army and won't invade you, but even if they will, then you will only lose one troop. If you want to know more about this strategy, then feel free to check out the video in the card above. But let's get back to progressive cards games. As you can see, even though the purple player had some of his armies blocked, he still got to take the blue and yellow players out. And I have got to take the orange and green players out. But even though I took some of the players out, and captured a lot of purple territories, I was still having a huge disadvantage of troops, and the purple player could had all of the chances to win. But to my surprise, he still wasn't smart to fortify his biggest army out of Australia, so he lost some of the advantage. One of my endgame strategies, which you could check out in a video card above, has perfectly worked. And then instead of attacking one of my territories of ones to be guaranteed getting a card, purple decided to take the risk and attack 8 troops instead, and he failed. And to my even bigger surprise, he still kept his army in a blocked place. Like, come on dude, why would I unleash your biggest army, lol. Why are you so desperate to guard Australia, which only gives 2 troops? No Australia, no win, right? Well, I think you took that joke too seriously, lol. And at the same time giving me an unexpected, epic victory. Anyways, moving on to the next game. The orange player was taking opponent by opponent out, including me, for 1 card. And that would have been totally fine, but the thing is that after taking me out, she wasn't able to trade in a set in the same turn. So she took a very big risk. But that still wasn't the biggest mistake of this game. Because look what happened next. The purple player, instead of taking the blue player out who had 4 cards and 7 territories, decided to go for the orange player who had 5 cards but even 28 territories. Personally, I can only take 20 territories per 60 seconds, and I know some players who can even take 22 territories, but I have never met anyone so far who could take even 28 territories in a 60 seconds turn. So that was a total mistake by purple of not knowing how many territories he can take per turn. That is very important to know, guys. While some players can take only 18 of them, some of the players can even 22. It really depends on your phone. So if you want, you can do an experiment of how many territories you can take yourself as well. The video in the card above shows the exact way of how to properly do it. By not knowing of how many territories he can take per turn, the purple player totally gave the game for blue. And what is most importantly, is what the purple player totally blundered this game. Instead of fully going for orange, the purple player totally gave the game for blue. And what is most importantly, is what the purple player totally blundered this game. Instead of fully going for orange, the purple player could only take some territories of her, then taking the blue player out for 4 cards. The timer would have been reset by 30 seconds, and the purple player would have finished taking the orange player out in the same turn. But that didn't happen, so let's move on to the next mistake of master rank players. It is not planning ahead, not paying attention to the game, or planning what to do next only when your turn is started. The purple player is a perfect example of this mistake. He was planning what to do way too long when he finally decided to go for blue, so even though the blue player had only 5 territories, the purple player still ran out of time. And that is just proves that you should always be paying attention to the game and absolutely planning ahead. That mistake of just one player totally cost the game for all of them. I took the opportunity and swiped all of the players out in a single turn. But don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect and making some of the mistakes from time to time as well, like in this video above. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. Anyways, this video of top mistakes of master rank players was something new and exclusive to my channel, the type of video which I have never made before. So if you guys liked it, then don't forget to show it by smashing the thumbs up button, and also let me know in the comments section down below if I should create a second part of top mistakes of masters, or maybe you would like to see mistakes of even different rank players. Let me know. Make sure to subscribe to the channel pushing the notification bell so you won't miss any new episodes of Risk.